Welcome to today's Issues. I'm Christy Carson, and my guests this morning are CEO of Father Support Center, Halbert Sullivan. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Christy. Thanks for having us on today.
And Lisl King-Williams. She's an attorney, a graduate of Northwestern University School of Law and the J.L. Kellogg Graduate School of Management. She has over 30 years of legal experience, including 10 years as a municipal court judge in the city of St. Louis. Welcome to the program, Attorney Williams.
Thank you so much for having me, Christy.
And all the way from Washington, D.C., Dr. Jeffrey Johnson. He's the president of the National Partnership for Community Leadership, and Dr. Johnson is one of the nation's leading experts on responsible fatherhood and partnership development. He also has a Bachelor of Arts, a Master of Arts, and Doctor of Philosophy degree in education from the University of Michigan Ann Arbor campus. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
I hope I did justice on your bio there. I mean, all of you all have impressive bios. And
Halbert, let's start with you. I didn't give a lot of your bio because I think it's best told by you. It's truly a story of personal and shared victory.
Well, okay, Christy. Everyone seems to know about that master's degree from George Warren Brown School of Social Work. But what a lot of people don't know is that I am an ex-con and a recovering drug addict. I went into drug rehab in 1993. And one of the things, well, actually the rehab thing, it worked for me. And so one of the things I wanted to be able to do is to give back to society. I felt at that time that I had just did a huge injustice, not only to myself, but to society in general. So I came out, I went to college, going to school. I wanted to work with kids. I wanted to work with youth. And so I was on track to become a school social worker. I left Forest Park after 2 years with an associate's degree, went to Fontbonne University, got my bachelor's degree from Fontbonne in 96, got into Wash U in 96, also landed a job as a school social worker. So I was in my dream job. Wanted to work with youth because as I examined my life while I was in drug rehab, I made some very bad decisions right around the age of 14, 15. I didn't come from one of those so-called, what's the term for those families, messed up families?
Dysfunctional?
Dysfunctional. I didn't come from a dysfunctional family. I was dysfunctional. My family was good. I came from a great home, had a single parent, but we had enough to eat. We had values, right and wrong, good and bad. Just at the age of around about 14, I made some bad decisions. So I wanted to work with youth to help them to not to get on the path that I'd gotten on. And so that's where I was working as a school social worker with the St. Louis Public Schools while getting my master's degree at Wash U. At Wash U, I was working on research projects that dealt with the family. One of the projects I worked on with Professor John Robertson was looking at non-marital births and their contributing factors to poverty. As a social worker at a school like Brown School, you want to understand what causes things to happen so you can sort of fix that stuff. And working on this project, I got an opportunity to look at the non-custodial parent, which was oftentimes the father, and the drastic things that would occur to children because that father was not involved in their life.
Halbert Sullivan continued to explain to me what his years of life experiences and professional education taught him. And he says he knew that he could help best by starting with the parent and how that impacts the youth.
I did want to target and just go right in on the parent. And the parent that was the least involved in the rearing process at that time was that non-custodial, never married, non-residential father. If we could bring him back, got a whole list of things that would change. Children with behavior disorders, 65% of those children come from fatherless homes. Children who go to juvenile institutions, 72% of those come from fatherless homes. Children engaged in substance abuse, 72% of those children come from fatherless homes. Whole list of things that occur. And oftentimes when we talk about fatherlessness and the negative impact it might have on children, we're thinking about how great a young boy might do by having his father involved. Well, 82% of all teenage girls who get pregnant come from fatherless homes. With that being said, keeps the cycle continuing with that higher rate of teen pregnancy related to fatherless homes. And working on this project and gathering other data, I decided with some urging that we would develop this father support center here in St. Louis as a means to impact outcomes for children. So that's the short version of how it came to be.
So, Halbert began what he calls the father's work in 1997, with Halbert being the only staff member and working from inside a room donated by the Guardian Angel Settlement Association located at 14th and Lisl. And they stayed there until about 2003 when they relocated to their current location at 4411 North Newstead, Prince Hall Family Support Center. And currently, they provide their 6-week holistic versions at 2 other locations, including the Met Center out west and the Employment Connection Center on Market Street. And smaller partnership programs with Youth Build, Salvation Army, and Day Report. Dr. Jeffrey Johnson is one of the leading experts on fatherhood, visiting us from Washington, D.C., and I asked Dr. Johnson, what has the research revealed about why fathers have been absent from their children's lives?
Well, the history behind it is that there was a study done, a famous study back in 1965, that was headed by the then Secretary of the Department of Labor, Daniel Patrick Moynihan. And he wrote a report called the Negro Family. Mm-hmm. And it talked about the challenges faced by Black families at the time because of family disintegration. And some of the most often overlooked areas in that report had to do with the absence of the male. And what was being reported, this is 1965, was that what was contributing to the decrease in male presence in homes was the declines in the manufacturing sector, that jobs and the loss of jobs has been a contributing factor significantly to the absence of fathers. And if you connect that to the socialization of men, which is around being the provider, being the breadwinner, when a lot of men can't meet that condition, a lot of them decide that it's better for me not to be there since I can't provide and kind of make it on my own. That is not the attitude that we want those fathers to have, but that is clearly something that we want to identify as one of the causes of the father absence. I think the other things have to do with the fact that, particularly as it relates to young people, is that young people growing up in homes where father's not present kind of goes back to the data that Halbert was just talking about. When fathers are not there, what we find is that the suicide rate potential of children increases, the dropout rate potential increases, the teen pregnancy rate increases. All those things are correlated to father absence. And so what we've tried to do is really emphasize through Halbert's program and others the importance of father presence. Father presence matters, right? When fathers are involved in the life of their children, the studies say that over 100 studies say that having a loving and nurturing father is as important to child development as a loving and nurturing mother. Not more important, but as important. Mm-hmm. And a lot of fathers really don't understand their importance to children and the growth and development of children and to the strengthening of families. And so, the problem, I think jobs have a lot to do with it. I think that some of it has to do with our socialization, and that when their acts are not together, this stands to reason that's going to have an adverse effect on our children.
Halbert Sullivan also points to the poverty programs initiated by Lyndon B. Johnson, how they were complicit in promoting families without fathers.
In the 60s is where a lot of other concerns became apparent as it relates to fatherlessness. I think it was 68 when we passed the welfare.
That's right. The poverty programs of Lyndon Johnson.
Right.
Wow.
That poverty program passed our government. And one of the things that came out of that program is that you can receive these services, but no man could be in the home.
Right.
In other words, you're going to afford to this mom dollars to pay for housing, dollars to buy groceries, medical support, and some dollars in your pocket. But
As
in
long
order to
as.
get that money, no male could be in that home.
He says that fact alone caused a huge problem in the family continuity. And although President Johnson's poverty program was based on a 1935 addition to the Social Security Act called Aid to Dependent Children, brought into legislation by Franklin Delano Roosevelt of the New Deal, Dr. Johnson added that the act was written for widows with children, and that is why it has those specific exclusions. Yet over the years, that legislation never kept up with the demographic changes. Here he explains further, and the unfortunate consequences resulting from a piece of legislation that failed to keep up with the times.
The legislation didn't position itself in such a way that if the mother and father were in the same, had the same challenges, it did not respond to the father. The father just had to figure it out the best way he knew how, and that as a consequence, the law had one of the unintended consequences of pushing him out, and when it came to issues like child support, pushing him underground. And that one of the terms that we brought to the fore back in the 1990s as a way of really understanding who that father is. We say that this is not a deadbeat father, because a deadbeat father is associated with a father who has a child support order, and for a lot of different reasons. One is not his inability to pay, but he does not pay because of a relationship with the mother or some other issue like that. But in the case of a lot of fathers being served by the Father Support Center, these fathers are not deadbeat fathers. They're dead broke fathers. And you can't squeeze blood from a stone.
Yeah.
All right. And it just makes no sense, to use the same standard associated with those fathers who don't have any money at all with those fathers who do have money.
Our guests today are Halbert Sullivan, CEO of Father Support Center, Dr. Jeffrey Johnson, President and CEO of the National Partnership for Community Leadership, and attorney Lisl King Williams. 30 years of legal experience, including 10 years as a St. Louis City municipal judge, and she has a very rich and concentrated wealth of knowledge and experience in child support, child custody, visitation, municipal, and criminal matters. So the big question is, how does Father Support Center help fathers, especially when it seems like the laws are stacked against them?